Hey, everyone. Okay, it's about that time. We'll get started. Always want to reward people for being on time. And so the best way I can do that is just with an on-time start. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming today. My name is Sarah Ford. I am a senior program manager at Microsoft. I just recently joined the team, the Azure AD B2C team, about a few weeks ago. However, I'm not new to Microsoft developer communities. I used to be on the Visual Studio team. I don't know if anyone remembers like a Visual Studio tip of the day. Like, did you know number 271? Okay, I'm seeing a few smiles. So that was my blog back in the day. I also was the program manager for Coplex, also for several years, or VPM as they like to refer. So I love developer communities. I just joined, and so if you have a chance to catch up with me today, I would love to hear about your experiences in the developer community and what we can do to support you as the community in this ecosystem. And I'm also joined here with Parag Jain. He's my onboarding buddy. And this is a great session. This entire next few days has been great for me, also with onboarding, but especially this is what I have been focusing on with Parag, is how getting started with B2C, understanding the overview, but also understanding the built-in policies. And then, so one of the things we want you to be able to walk away with today is everyone to have a baseline understanding, because it's really important. If we don't have like the same baseline, like we want you to have the best next couple of days possible. So the goal of this is get everyone on the same page, and then also at the end there's going to be a lab where you're going to be able to walk through customizing a language for your policies. And with that, I will turn it over to Parag. And I also will be proctoring, helping with the lab at the end of the session. So turn it to you.
Thank you. Seems like everyone can hear me okay. Hey, everyone. So let's talk quickly about the agenda. We're going to review the pre-work really quickly to kind of get a feel for how familiar you guys are with B2C. I'm going to introduce you to Azure AD B2C and the Identity Experience Framework, what it means and how B2C leverages this platform that we've created. I'll briefly discuss the libraries and the samples that we have. This is just to kind of give you a feel of what are the resources that will help you get started quickly with our product. And then finally, we'll go through a lab at the very end that teaches you how you could do language customization. It'll also kind of give you a quick feel of what B2C is if you haven't worked with the pre-work already. So before we dive deep into B2C, I want to just kind of step back and give you an overview of the two offerings that we provide at Microsoft. One of them is Azure AD. I'm hoping most of you have heard it. And then the other is Azure AD B2C. The first offering, Azure AD, is really for the enterprise users. Here, we're talking about users that you want to give access to your Office 365, to your line of business applications. If you would prefer to have anybody come in and sign up to your application, have them use Facebook, have them use Google, have them use maybe your own identity provider that you have for Azure Active Directory, then you want to use B2C. Don't keep the two separate, especially if you're trying to use Office 365. You want to go stick with Azure AD. The other is with Azure AD, right now, the guest users can only be Azure Active Directory users and MSA guest users. Again, for B2C, you have the social enterprise users and local account users. And these are more like a way to kind of do a sanity check, but there are some caveats and tiny details, but that's what we hope you'll take out of the conference. And the final thing is, hey, if you have an Azure subscription, and if you have Azure AD premium licenses, then you're going to be dealing with Azure AD because Azure AD B2C does not support them. They don't have them. You cannot run virtual machines inside an Azure AD B2C tenant because there is no, they cannot bill you since there's no subscriptions inside that tenant. Cool. So let's just review the pre-work really quickly. By show of hands, how many of you guys have done it or have done something along these lines in the past? How many of you played with B2C? Cool. And for those who haven't, quick raise of hands, just to know. Okay, so we have a few folks here. Just because we're going through a recording as well right now, I'm going to very briefly cover what B2C looks like here and what the pre-work entails. Here, you're looking at the overview of Azure AD B2C, like the settings blade inside the Azure portal. As part of the pre-work, what you would have done is created a web application or registered an application inside B2C that would be configured to your application. This is how Azure AD B2C identifies which application is calling B2C. Here's your application ID, and here you would whitelist a few URLs that you would do to redirect the token to. If you notice, I've added localhost right here because I'm running a web application on my computer right now. Second, what you would do is you would add an identity provider. In this case, I've added Facebook as an identity provider. And finally, you would create a policy, and a policy in this case is just a user journey or a sign-in experience that you would add, that your users would go through. So to show you a simple one, this is the one I've loaded. This is what you get out of the box, straight up. Like I mentioned, I added Facebook as an identity provider, and here's the option for them to sign in. And I've also enabled for them to be able to log in using local accounts. If you put it all together, I have created, I'm running this web server in the background, which is running this application. I have set up the, let me just scroll this over. .config. Okay, I configured it by providing the application ID that you notice inside right here, that you registered inside Azure AD B2C. If you need it, you add the client secret and provide the policy ID. And ultimately, when you hit run, what you'll get is your application being able to sign up or sign in. So I click on this. Keep in mind, I've added a template for you to sign in. I've added a custom UI. Just wanted to give you a quick feel for what you can do with B2C sort of out of the box. And here's the Facebook button, email address. Type it in, type in your email address, log in. I'll sign in with my Facebook since I'm already signed into Facebook. And you're in. Oops, there's a breakpoint. Hit continue. And there you are. You're logged in. Quick and simple. All you have to do was add a few lines of code, configure it to B2C, and you're in. So that's what we have as part of the pre-work. And again, if you weren't able to do this, we have a session at the end of the day, and we'll have time at the end of this class to help you get through the pre-work if you haven't, so that you can really get a feel for it and be able to dive deeper throughout the next 2 days. Now, I'm going to step back just a bit. Perfect. I'm going to step back just a bit and explain to you how B2C fits in with our in the picture, in the bigger picture. In the B2C team, what we've actually done is shipped 2 features, 2 services, 2 offerings that lets you build on top of each other. So to be clear, we've provided a platform called the Identity Experience Framework, and on top of this platform is B2C. This might seem a little confusing, but over time it'll clear up because we have a session on Identity Experience Framework a little later. But right now, we're going to talk about B2C specifically. Now, the great thing about this framework is that you can actually connect it to Microsoft services such as Application Insights, Logic Apps, Dynamics, or you can connect it to third-party services. For example, social providers, Salesforce, APIs, etc. And if you put them together, you can actually leverage B2C through the Identity Experience Framework and get access to all of these services. And that's how B2C kind of is built. But it's not just B2C there. What you can actually do as the identity professionals out here, you can use the Identity Experience Framework to do more. We're going to focus just on the B2C aspect today and right now. But really, we have had a consulting service. Our Microsoft Consulting Services has built a sports platform. And you guys, too, can take the full benefit of Identity Experience Framework in the coming days and learn about it and how you can leverage it. But like I mentioned, we're going to focus on B2C. Specifically, we're going to focus on how to use B2C with built-in policies. As you remember, this is our sign-in. This is our Azure portal and how you can configure Azure AD B2C. Here are the built-in policies to the bottom left. And what you can do is you can actually do 5 different kinds of policies. You can do sign up, sign in, have profile edit, you can have, and you can have password reset. These are out-of-the-box files that you can kind of just get started with. You don't need to worry about knowing any additional details. This is really great for an audience that doesn't have any experience with the identity space. Furthermore, as I mentioned, there's another thing that we have. It's just called custom policies. Custom policies are files that you actually configure using XML. These policies tap into the power of the identity experience framework fully. You're not limited by what we have given you via the UI. The built-in policies, however, because it's through the UI, anyone can use it. You can get started. You can actually, when you're doing proof of concepts, you can start off and quickly build a proof of concept and say, hey, look, this is what we can do for you already, plus more. There's a lot of capability in B2C policy, and you're not kind of stuck on the custom policy aspect. Like I said, I'll focus on the built-in for right now. So another thing with built-in is you get the full UI customization capabilities, like I showed you before. You can customize the CSS, you can customize the HTML. We are also enabling in the near future a full give you full access to the JavaScript so you can customize that as well. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask anytime. The other thing you could do is you could do the attribute or the claims customization that we have when you're getting a token. You can do you have various session options that are both available through custom policies and built-in policies. And you can do a limited number of identity providers through built-in right now, such as Facebook, Google, and Microsoft. But in the future, we're going to give you the access to add any custom OIDC, SAML, or OAuth provider. Go on. Sure. So the question here is, can you use a built-in policy and a custom policy at the same time? One of the things you'll see is that you can have multiple policies in your tenant. However, if you have a built-in policies, you can't add on to that policy using a custom policy. There's sort of 2 different channels that you're going to have to work with. You'll notice over the next few days that everything you can do in built-in, you can do through custom. So you will just have to add those settings into your custom policies and then build off that. Yep. OK. So diving deeper into built-in policies, like I mentioned, yeah, sorry. The timeline is hard to say. OpenID Connect, I would say, is in by the end of the year. SAML, I can't give you a time estimate at all. OK, yeah, great question. So as part of the portal, what you could do is you can download policies from the portal. When you create a built-in policy, you can download it. Right now, if you were to download that policy and then compare it with what we give you in the starter pack for custom policies, it's different. We don't plan to merge them or show you how, partially because if you notice, there's a thing called base policies as part of the starter pack. There's a base policy that we've created, which is completely different than what we're giving you. There's one central base policy that we use for all of the tenants that B2C creates that are for built-in. But we don't want to, we cannot give you all of the lists because some of it is strictly for us and for our needs. So no, it's not going to merge. But maybe in the future, there might be, I'll take that feedback interesting, and I'll talk to you offline to see what you want to gain out of downloading it and see how we can make that better for you. Any other questions? Yeah.
Can you go back to what I asked you?
Yep.
So when you say the last
For the future on the built-in policy side? Yeah, okay. So right now, B2C supports a specific set of identity providers, right? But I'm sorry, let me repeat the question and clarify if I don't have this correctly. Does B2C built-in policies in the future, will it support OIDC, SAML, and OAuth providers? The answer is yes to all three. They will, in the future, we will support OAuth, OIDC, and SAML as a custom policy identity provider. As a custom identity provider inside built-in.
Yeah, so just like that.
Yeah.
You're saying today, you guys are supporting written policies supporting social media, right?
Yep, like Facebook, Google, etc. Yeah.
I thought that's doing OAuth.
That's what?
Are they doing OAuth?
Yes, they are doing OAuth. We're not giving you the ability to do a custom one. We're not saying, oh, go find any OAuth provider out there and add it as an identity provider. The system supports it, right? Clearly, we have Facebook, Twitter's doing OAuth 1.0. So the system supports it. It's only a subset that we give you, but with custom policies though, that's where you can actually use the power and do it yourself. Yep. Cool. All right. So policies. This is like the power. This is like the awesomeness about Azure AD B2C. It's really the policies. Why? Because you're taking apart. You're basically modularizing what you have when it comes to identity experience from your app. You're taking the two apart and not getting them mixed up. And what I mean by that is, imagine a directory, like a B2C directory, with a bunch of policies: a sign-up experience, a sign-in experience, a profile edit experience, right? And then imagine an application. What you can do is you just need to link it so that the application calls this policy. And more so, you can link it so it calls any one of the policies. You're not defined and limited by one experience that you've hard-coded into your app. On top of that, you can have multiple apps calling the same policies. So now if you have an iOS application, you have an Android application, you have a web application, you don't have to code 3 different ways to do the same thing, or you don't have to do the same thing in 3 different ways, right? It's all there, kind of streamlined for you. If you have a developer, he wants to change the profile edit experience, he can change it without having to know all 3 different code bases. And that's really why policies are so useful. It really kind of makes everything simple because it modularizes everything. And one of the things we get questions about, though, is when do you sign up versus sign up or sign in? And I just want to show you through the UI what the differences are. Part of the reason, and I don't want to get into too many details, but sign up or sign in uses a sort of a different platform than sign in policies in terms of the behind the scenes. And what we're trying to do is we're going to use the same platform for the future. So the recommendation here is use a sign up or sign in policies unless you hit this limitation that is only met by sign in policies. Part of the reason why is because sign in policies, we're working to replace it with a different sign in experience so that it all uses the same backend point. Let me just show you the difference really quickly. There's 2 key differences, and there's a few subtle more, but we can talk about it offline if you happen to ever hit it. The first difference is in a sign-in experience, in a sign-up or sign-in policy, you can fully customize the UI. So you're noticing it's no longer fixed to the template where your username and password is stuck to the right and there's a giant logo on the left. You can do whatever you want. Eventually, you can also add JavaScript to it. Whereas in a sign-in experience, all you can customize is this screen on the left and this logo that you have above the sign-in box. And the other main experience that you're doing is the forget password experience. In a sign-in policy, and only sign-in policy, if you hit can't access your account, it's going to take you straight to this page where you can type in the user ID, type in a CAPTCHA, and it'll help you do a password reset. However, if you're going to go inside a sign-up or sign-in policy, I'm going to use this one for this example, and do forget your password. Okay, so if you notice, it actually took me back to this localhost. This is a website that it's just redirecting to because I told it to redirect to that site. But it's giving you an error code back. It's not taking you to a page that allows you to do a password reset. And the reason we're doing this is because we want to give you the flexibility to figure out how you want to do a password reset. Password reset could be a sensitive process, so you might want to say, hey, I want you to call a call center instead, or I want to do a bunch of security questions that I'm going to ask you just to verify that you are who you are. Or you can simply call a password reset flow that's basic, where it says, hey, let me just redirect you to a password reset flow, which will then send an email to you with the confirmation, and you update your password. Like I said, it gives you more flexibility, and that's why we do it. And how you manage it and deal with it is basically based on a code that you get, which the error code is AAD B2C 90118. It's here if you need it, but if you have any questions, let me know. Cool. And then the one thing, sorry, yeah.
So in the future, there still will be a sign-in policy.
Yes.
A new sign-in.
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
What is your suggestion in that case if flexibility of the sign-in policy, but people actually use the sign-in part and use the sign?
So that's we're going to work on building a sign-in experience that yes, you will have the sign-up part disabled. It's going to be the same sign-in policy, but and where you can only sign in and not sign up. It'll just use the same system in the back end, so that you have the whole UI customization and all these features available for that as well. Yeah, that's in the future. No timeline. No idea right now. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Something available. Oh, this is something, though, you can achieve using custom policies. So by the way, just for recording, the question is, hey, can you do sign in? In the future, will you be able to sign in only and not be forced to do a sign up or sign in? And the answer is yes. Even if we're replacing the sign in experience, the functionality will remain the same in terms of only being able to sign in and not sign up.
So with custom policies, you will be able to have flexibility you have if that's not a problem.
That's right. And you will not face, you can currently use custom policies to not have that issue. Yeah. Great. OK. So just to tell you about some of the resources we have that you can use with Azure AD B2C, I want to talk about the libraries that you can use with B2C. Specifically, I want to talk about MSAL, AppAuth, and Hello.js. AppAuth and Hello.js are third-party libraries. MSAL is a first-party library. And in the next slide, I will also talk about MSAL versus ADAL, just to clear up a little bit of confusion that you may have. So MSAL is the Microsoft Authentication library. There are 4 flavors right now: the .NET version, the Android, the iOS, and the JavaScript. They're all in preview, but you can actually take them to production. AppAuth is an open source library that the OpenID Foundation, I believe, has created, where they have a sample that you can use, and we have a sample that you can use with B2C for Android and iOS. And then we also have a sample that shows you how to use the JavaScript application using Hello.js, which is another third-party library that you can use. I want to emphasize that Azure AD B2C is an OpenID Connect compliant service, meaning if you find a third-party library out there, any third-party library out there that can talk using OpenID Connect, you will be able to use it with B2C. And I also want to emphasize that MSAL is not meant to be an all-encompassing, a general OpenID Connect library. MSAL is dedicated for the tasks that you want to solve when you're working with the Microsoft Identity Services. Specifically, Azure AD B2C, right? You can use them for both the things. It'll make your life much simpler when you're dealing with only Microsoft services, because they remove a lot of the overhead, a lot of the code that you will need to otherwise implement if you're using a third-party library. Another thing it gives you is better performance, caching abilities, and obviously, and the thing about MSAL, which is great, is if you know one flavor of it, if you know .NET, you now have a deeper understanding of MSAL for all of the flavors. So you don't need to learn four different libraries. You can just learn one and know sort of how to implement it in the other languages. Now, question. I don't. So there's another dedicated team working on MSAL. They are going to be here there's going to be a member coming tomorrow during the table topic session, where you can ask anything with the experts. Maybe he can provide it. I'm not sure though. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So one of the questions developed. Yeah. Question.
So does ADAL not work with all of the B2C? The second question, you mentioned Owen. What about the core?
Oh, Owen. Sorry. Owen is you can use Owen with Azure AD B2C. Sorry, go on.
The question was about in Katana, in core 5, there is no Owen. So
Ah.
do that. And secondly, is ADAL not supported in all of B2C, or is it just on recommend?
Okay. So the question is, Owen is not part of ASP.NET Core, ASP.NET 5.0, and so is B2C supported there? The answer is yes, it is. It will be supported. I don't know the exact implementation details, but I'll talk offline because I don't know the full details there. Second question is, does ADAL not work with Azure AD B2C? The answer is no. MSAL, bottom line is, if you're trying to use MSAL, if you're trying to use Azure AD B2C, you must use MSAL. However, if you have a scenario where like you need to hit the V1 endpoint, and we have a few sessions where we're going to go a little bit deeper into it. But again, we do have an expert on libraries coming in tomorrow. There are specific scenarios that you cannot achieve with MSAL right now. It's in preview. ADAL is generally available. If those specific scenarios, like you need ADAL, you'll have to use ADAL. But if you're trying to use Azure AD B2C, or if you have consumers logging in to your corporate account using MSA, or if you have people trying to log in to, or if you want an application to allow MSA users and Azure AD users to be able to sign in, that's when MSAL comes in very handy. And right now, MSAL does not support ADFS at all. So this is kind of like an overview. Again, can't go into too many details, but the bottom line is, if you're using Azure AD B2C, you must use MSAL. OK, so I left. Oh, yeah, question.
What about what's the roadmap for that? How does that look down the way?
Great question. They are working so MSAL is working itself to be in parity with ADAL. MSAL, really, you can think of it as the vNext of ADAL. Roadmap questions, like I said, the library team should be available tomorrow. Feel free to ask them questions, but I don't know too many details about it. Yeah, and I can follow up too. Feel free to flag me down. I'll get your contact details, and I can follow up with you individually as well with your questions. OK, so we're going to work on a lab right now for about 15 to 20 minutes. For the people who don't have the pre-work set up, Sarah and I will be walking around helping you answer any questions. There are additional resources that you can look at. We have our documentation page. We have our samples that you can look up on GitHub. And then there's also a website we have, which is called jot.ms, that you can use. It's the website that you can use to decode tokens. If you want to just run now, just to run a policy just to test it out, great website to redirect to. Just add it as part of the reply URLs when you're signing up an application. If you have any questions in the future, I mean, we're here right now. But if you have any questions in the future, it would be great if you posted them on Stack Overflow. We are monitoring it more and more actively, especially getting more and more people get ramped up with B2C. It's really about the building, community building here. Whatever questions you ask, it's going to help everyone else. So great place to ask questions. And if for any reason it doesn't get traction, feel free to shoot an email to our team as well. Yeah. If anyone has any questions, let me know. It's good. I'll leave. And also, I guess I'll just end the session and we'll just keep working. Please evaluate the session. It would be really, really useful. It's definitely one of my first times doing it, so any feedback would be tremendous. Positive or negative, both are great. Thank you.